Shalom Abracha from Yerushalayim. We have completed in our last video the Minhagim of Arbit al-Motzei Shabbat in the synagogue. We will move on now and discuss the Minhagim of the Habdalah. Now, as I mentioned in our last video, towards the end of the Arbit, Shamosh will have a couple of young boys go around the synagogue with the mazahar, the rose water, and the nice silver holders, distribute the mazahar to the people who will hold it in their hands, the liquid, and then until the time when the Hazan will recite the Beracha Borei Minei B'Samim, they'll answer Amen, and they'll smell it to fulfill their obligation. It's interesting that when I spoke about the Minhagim of Friday night, that were in the old days, they used to have the Shamosh would stand at the door of the synagogue, and as the people exit Friday night, Lil Shabbat, they would, the Shamosh would sprinkle them, would distribute B'Samim on the way out, and they'll make the Beracha Borei Minei B'Samim. It's interesting, we receive the Shabbat, and we depart from the Shabbat with that same beautiful, fragrant mazahar, which reminds us so much of the Knis, the synagogue, and of Shabbat. It's very, very nice. And this is, by the way, the minhag of in our community to use B'Samim. It's an old minhag, probably in Halab as well, as opposed to many kehilot which use hadas or some other fragrant green plant, which will say Aseh B'Samim or Esbeh B'Samim. Our custom was always to do it on mazahar and to say Borei Minei B'Samim. Now we're going to talk about the minhagim of the reciting of the Habdalah. There's always that lucky young boy that gets to hold the candle. Also, it's a nice custom to get the children involved, and it's a big thrill for them. Our custom throughout, certainly my experiences, and I've seen it in countless synagogues, was that the Hazan, who usually standing at the podium near the Hechal, or in the smaller synagogues, maybe on the Teba, the Hazan reciting the Habdalah would be standing up, holding the cup of wine. The people would be seated. This is our custom. I know there are those now that want to insist that the Hazan, based on Pesakim of Gedolei HaChamim, that the Hazan also be seated. But the custom was always in front of great Hachamim that the Hazan would be standing and the people would be seated. Now let's talk about the nosah of the Habdalah, the actual wording of the Habdalah. Now here you'll find some variants variances among the Hazanim. The nosah that we use, you'll find it on page 392 in the Kol Yaakov. It was also similar, very similar, almost exact, to the nosah printed in 1915 in the Sidur in Halab Alot HaShahar. Rishon LeSiyon, Kos Yeshua, Adna Hashem Moshi'anna, Hatzlechenu, a couple of pesukim about Simha, Ora v'Simcha Son Vikar, Vayi David, Ben Elohim v'Adam, Sabri Maranat. It's concise. You will find sometimes maybe when they'll invite Hazanim, especially from Israel, so they'll start Kumi Ori Ki Ba'orech, and many pesukim which we may not be familiar with. Actually, that it would be found in Mahzor Ram Sobah from 500 years ago. But the nosah which is accepted by the Halabi community is the nosah printed in Kol Yaakov without all the added pesukim. Following the Habdalah in the synagogue, there was a custom. Now it's brought down in Sefer Derech Eretz, a custom that is testified to by Alav Shalom, Hacham Yitzhak Tawil, also by Haim. They said that following the Habdalah, the Kahal would sing a number of the Pizmonim, the beautiful Pizmonim, which are very old, by the way. They date way back to the Rishonim, and they would sing like Mosei Menuha, El Eliyahu, Hamadim and Kodesh Lehol, and they would sing these Pizmonim in the synagogue. We know that in Halab, in the earlier days, I'm talking about based on the Mahzor Ram Sobah printed in the 16th century, that even has a Kaddish following these Piyutim. So it's clear that it would be done in the synagogue. Today you don't find that as much. Following Habdalah, immediately following the Hazan will drink and everybody disperses and goes home. But it is a nice custom. In Israel we do maybe a couple of batim, a couple of verses. There was, however, a very interesting custom and a very important custom in our community that Motzei Shabbat, families would gather at the homes of the patriarch and the matriarch of the families, the grandparents, all the siblings and the grandchildren would gather. They would say Habdalah together, followed by, they would get around the table, the men, and they would say, V'yitin lecha Elohim. It's in our Kol Yaakov, page 393. Beautiful Pesukim from the Torah, from the Nevi'im, from the Ketubim. Everybody would say Shu Pesukim. That's also how they sharpened their skills with the Ta'amim when they were younger. And following that, they would sing all of the songs of Motzei Shabbat. These are well-known songs. The entire family would sing them, following with the blessing that the grandfather would give to his children and grandchildren. It's also printed in the book, in the Siddur, and the whole Seder of Motzei Shabbat. This was a really beautiful custom, and inshallah we'll revive it because it's important for the feeling of not leaving Shabbat right away. We let Shabbat linger a little bit with the songs of Motzei Shabbat. And it's also important for the families to come together for this beautiful custom. Shalom u'bracha.